What's up, everybody? I did a video looking at Duolingo stock back in January. In that video, I said that I view Duolingo really like a mobile game. To me, it's not the future of education. I don't even think the product is all that great if you actually wish to learn a language. And in my previous video, I gave examples for what I think are just better alternatives. But with that said, Duolingo's user growth has been great. Many people clearly enjoy using it. And I said I would need a price under $100 a share to be interested. Some people said my view on the stock was ridiculous, or a bad take, or I just don't understand the moat of Duolingo. And all that might be true. It's always possible that I'm missing something, of course. But here we are today after they just released their Q4 earnings, and we have a price under $100 a share. So I think we probably should retake a look at Duolingo, go through this report, see why the stock sold off so much. We're down about 15% on the day. We were down even more pre-market, but it's recovered some here. Nothing here is advice to buy or sell Duolingo stock. I just give you my opinion, and as always, I will tell you what I'm doing with my money. If you get value out of the video, subscribe to the channel. If you want to join my Discord or grab my Google Sheets template where you can make sheets like this to analyze the stocks you're looking at, consider following me on Patreon. Link to that will be down below. Now, let's jump into Duolingo. I imagine most people who are watching this video probably familiar at least with what Duolingo is. It's an app for language learning, but recently they've been branching out. They have courses for math and chess. They want to build out music. They say our mission is to develop the best education in the world. And if you watch my last video on Duolingo, you know that I don't really think of Duolingo as an app for education. I think of it as a mobile game that is based around education. No matter how long your streak is on Duolingo, I don't think it's really possible to become conversational in a language just from using Duolingo. On the other hand, if you use Pimsleur in combination with something like italki, then yeah, I think it totally is possible to become conversational in a language. Also, if anyone is using the free version of the app, there are constantly little pop-ups, ads, or they try to get you to go to Super Duolingo, something like that. I personally feel like the user experience has gotten a little bit worse over the past year, but that might just be my opinion. If you disagree with that, if you see it differently, let me know down in the comments. Getting into the metrics that they reported here, daily active users crossing 50 million, up 30% year over year. Paid subscribers up 28% year over year. These are huge numbers. Revenue up 39% year over year. Total bookings up 33%. And in case you're curious, what is total bookings? How is that different from revenue? Total bookings is essentially just the money that was spent by users in this period, whereas revenue, there's a lot of accounting rules about how you recognize revenue. For example, if someone wants to book an annual subscription, then that booking, it's all counted in total bookings. But revenue, if that was an annual subscription, then you can count that booking as revenue over time. So over the 12 months, you can count, for the first month, you can count 1/12 of that booking total as revenue. And then by the time that year is done, that whole annual subscription would have been included in revenue. But bookings, if someone pays up front, then that's counted in total bookings right away. Now, the net income number here looks incredible. Over $400 million in net income. If you compare that to the market cap, and hey, by the way, now the stock price is over $100 a share, I guess, but compare that to the market cap of $4.6 billion, you're looking at, a stock that's trading for about 11-ish times earnings, let's say. That sounds pretty cheap, especially with growth like this. It sounds incredible. But this net income number here, it's pretty misleading. Most of it is from a pretty significant tax accounting benefit. When you've had negative net income for quite a while, then you have built up operating losses, and you can carry those forward and use those losses to offset gains in the future. And when you switch over into profitability and you think you're going to be profitable in the future, then those NOLs, those net operating losses, they can go on the balance sheet as a tax benefit. And when you do that, that's going to get recorded on the income statement as well as net income. But it's really just an accounting adjustment. This is one of the reasons why I just prefer to look at operating income for most businesses, or something like free cash flow. And I always adjust free cash flow for share-based compensation. So for Duolingo, they're reporting $360 million in free cash flow. You take out their share-based compensation, you're getting a number close to $200 million-ish for the year. That's still not bad. Based on their current market cap, you're talking about 4 to 5% free cash flow yield, the way that I'm looking at free cash flow. Or based on operating income, income from operations, we see for the year operating income about $135 million. If you compare that to the enterprise value of the business, which is the market cap plus the net debt, or in this case, Duolingo has a strong net cash position. So if you take into account all the cash that's sitting on their books, They're trading for, enterprise value to operating income of 25, 26, 27, somewhere in there. So now that the price has come down, it's not some ridiculous multiple like before, but the multiple you see on Google here of 12.7, or what some people might say an 11 times multiple, whatever it is, that's not a real metric in my opinion. So going back to the numbers, what they reported here for Q4, for the full year, these were good results. They're coming in line, if not ahead of what a lot of people thought they would do this year. But the stock is down sharply, and it's because of the guidance. They're guiding for bookings growth next year of 10 to 12%. Revenue growth, about 15-ish%. And adjusted EBITDA, which is probably my least favorite accounting metric. I always have to go look up and what in the world is the adjustment that this company is doing. But adjusted EBITDA margin is declining to 25%. So essentially, profitability coming down a bit. This has been closer to 30%. So what's going on here? I want to highlight this part in the CEO's note here where it says less friction. He says, up until now, the main way we've increased bookings per user is by adding small amounts of friction to encourage more people to subscribe. For example, by increasing ad load or subscription upsells. Yeah, that's definitely what I see when I just open the app and try to go through some courses is there's a lot of this. There's a lot of subscription upsells. Unfortunately, we believe that this extra friction is part of the reason our daily active user growth has slowed. So we've decided to prioritize user growth over monetization. To quantify this trade-off, we estimate we're investing more than $50 million of foregone bookings from friction, or about 5 points of year-over-year bookings growth, into the free user experience to drive word of mouth and user growth. So basically he's saying there that they think they've been too aggressive in certain ways on their platform, too aggressive to monetize, and that's negatively impacted the growth, and they're going to roll that back. But that means that they're saying, it's going to negatively influence the monetization. There's this balance between monetization and growth going on. And looking at this data from JP Morgan on Duolingo's daily active user growth, you kind of see what's going on. If we look at the overall growth, this right here, we see that it was north of 60%, then it drops to 50, 40%, 30%. As you get bigger and bigger, growing at 20% year-over-year growth rates, 30% year-over-year growth rates, that becomes incredibly difficult. When they had 10 million daily active users, going from 10 to 20, that would be 100% growth. Now that they have 50 million daily active users, if you had 10 million more going from 50 to 60, that's 20% growth. And on the call, management said, now while our daily active user growth over the past several years has been nothing short of phenomenal, which I agree it has, it decelerated throughout 2025, and as the new year began, we continued to see this trend. We now expect daily active user growth to be about 20% year over year throughout 2026. This reinforced my conviction that we needed to take more decisive actions to reaccelerate daily active user growth. So looking at the trend here, if they actually achieve 20% growth in users, I think that would be quite a good result. To me, 15% might be more realistic. And if you break this down by region, you see a little bit more what's going on. In the Americas, user growth is close to flat, actually. The real growth is coming from overseas, from Asia Pacific, which is still growing very well. But the most important region, US and Canada here, growth is in the single digits. Monetization is not the same across these regions. So yeah, if you're growing 40% in Asia Pacific and 20% in Latin America, but you're not growing at all in US and Canada, those US and Canada numbers, they're going to affect your revenue more than the other regions. They're also investing quite a bit in AI tools. They say additionally, because we will offer AI features to more users and have slightly higher marketing spend, we expect our adjusted EBITDA margin will decrease. So more marketing, more spending on AI, they're saying that that's the reason for decrease in profitability next year. And the bookings growth that they're guiding for of, just about 11%, they're saying that, yeah, if we operate it like in the past with more of this friction, more of these ads, then we probably could have this number at, 20-ish%, similar to what we're saying our daily active user growth is going to be. But because we're pulling that back, that's what's driving the lower bookings here. Another thing they say in here, which I found a little bit surprising, is 2026 stock-based compensation is expected to be about 15% of revenue, which is greater than it was previously. Previously, it was 13% of revenue, with absolute expense levels growing throughout the year. Now, typically for a lot of these tech companies where they have an IPO and a lot of the compensation to their employees is in the form of stock, Often, even if stock-based compensation is growing over time, typically as a percent of revenue, a lot of times it will come down. They're saying that's going to increase, and on revenue of about $1.2 billion, if you have 15% of that, that's like $180 million in share-based compensation. That's really quite a bit, and you see that the shares outstanding of this company over time, it's just gone up. I suspect that will likely reverse next year because they also announced a $400 million share repurchase program here. So they're going to use some cash, buy back stock. They say the program reflects the company's commitment to capital allocation and managing dilution. They don't give any details on the timeline exactly. Is this amount intended to be used in a year, in less than a year, in more than a year? But regardless, I anticipate that dilution will likely reverse this year. Not certain, that will remain to be seen, but that would be my guess. They certainly have the cash on hand to do this because if we look at their balance sheet, they're sitting on over $1 billion in cash right now. They have essentially no debt. This is really a perfect balance sheet. The company is definitely profitable. Even if I count for, non-cash expenses like share-based compensation, they've made money over the past year. There's no question about that. Also, some other things I should point out recently, not necessarily red flags, more like yellow flags, something to be aware of. The CFO stepped down recently. That went into effect this week. He's been with the company 6 years. He wasn't fired, voluntarily stepped down. And he's also just been selling a massive amount of stock. Pretty much when he gets hands on Duolingo shares, he sells them on the open market. Now, insiders selling their shares, it's not always such a strong signal, especially in tech companies with a lot of stock-based compensation. Naturally, many of these individuals, they don't want to have a huge amount of their net worth tied up into the stock of one company, especially the company that they're employed by. So they sell, but I have to point out, the sells here on Duolingo, it's a lot. Tons of insider selling. Now that the price is down at $100 a share, if the company is really undervalued, I'd like to see an insider come in and actually buy it. There haven't been any insider buys at all in this company for years. So now I think it's time we head over to our sheet. We take a look at what we could expect for a return on our investment in Duolingo stock today. With companies that have had very quick growth and that are flipping into profitability, it can be difficult to make these assumptions. For reference, their operating margin over the past year was about 13%. And while they're saying that profitability is going to come down this year, I would expect as this business scales out, their operating margin will expand. As you know, I think of Duolingo like a mobile game, and popular mobile games can have operating margins, 20 to 25%. Maybe more for very efficient businesses. In my base case, I'm assuming that their revenue growth of 15% slows down to 10% and their operating margin gets to 22%. I'm not assuming that much money gets sent back to shareholders because, while they have a buyback program here, stock-based compensation is going up. They're reinvesting in AI and all these other things. So I'm assuming some money net comes back to shareholders, but not a large amount. And I'm giving this business a 16 times multiple. You might think that's low. Maybe you think 20 is more appropriate, maybe 18, who knows? Whatever number you put in there, it's going to affect your IRR. With a multiple of 16 to 20, you're looking at 10 to 14% annualized return on Duolingo stock at today's price. That's not bad. It would likely be a market-beating return, but frankly, it's not enough for me in my base case. I typically like to see this being at least a double over 5 years, which would mean 15% IRR here or higher. My bear case sees growth slowing even faster, down to 5%. Operating margins expand a bit, expand out to 18% operating margins, and I'm only giving them a 10 times multiple. And this is probably a pretty pessimistic scenario. I understand if you think that's unlikely, but again, I just want to pull up this graph here showing the year-over-year change in daily active users. I think it's pretty reasonable to imagine that this trend continues. Again, I will highlight that in the US and Canada, growth here is almost non-existent, low to mid single digits. Now back to our spreadsheet. My bull case is management is successful. Revenue growth stays at 15%. You're looking at, about $2 billion in revenue 5 years out from now. You could maybe be even more optimistic if you truly do trust management. They're talking about these goals of 100 million daily active users, revenue hitting $2.5 billion several years. For that to happen, you'd really need to see this number start accelerating a bit. And while that's possible, I think it's unlikely. Operating margin, I assume they get out to 28% operating margins. This would definitely be towards the upper end of successful mobile games. And I'm giving them a 25 times multiple. And if this comes true, you're looking at about a 30% annualized return on Duolingo stock today. That would be getting close to a 4x on your money over 5 years. So obviously, if that comes true, excellent investment, As far as my opinion on overall risk reward, I know I said in my last video on Duolingo, I would need a price under $100 a share before I got interested. And now, well, the price was under $100 a share when I started making the video, a little over $100 a share now. I think I still agree that under $100 a share, Duolingo starts becoming interesting, starts becoming a company I want to keep an eye on. The balance sheet is fantastic. I love to see that. I expect that they're going to stop diluting shareholders. That's something we'll watch. I just think that I need a lower price in order to account for the fact that growth is likely slowing here. As far as a price where I'd think about actually putting some money in this, maybe more around this $70 to $80 range. That doesn't necessarily mean that I think that's the fair value of the stock. I want to buy things significantly below fair value where I think in my base case, I'm getting excellent returns. I imagine a $70 price will likely sound silly and ridiculous to many viewers. Again, in my last video on Duolingo, many people told me how wrong I was in the comments and how I didn't get it. That's totally fine. I like to hear different opinions. So let me know down in the comments below if you see this differently than I do. Either way, I hope you got value out of the video. If you did, subscribe to the channel. And if you want to join my Discord or grab my Google Sheets template here, then consider following me on Patreon. Link to that will be down below. And as always, I hope to see you in another video.